just going to the whole game. Say something I don't like. You get it.
Toph's revenge.
Do you like it taking it in the face? You're enjoying it too much. I'm learning a lot about you.
Like when you spray a cat.
You just spit in my face. Oh my gosh. I just felt you in my mouth. Oh, that was awful.
Why do you say it like that?
Oh.
Why do you say it like that?
Do you have bleach?
I just felt you in my mouth. What's wrong with you? Oh, shit. Seriously. Why is that how you say it?
Friendship just went to a whole new level. And I don't know how I feel about it. Actually, I do know how I feel about it.
Ready?
I have way too much fun with this. Is it cold? Hello!
Welcome to Bad at Board Games.
Well, he's bad at board games.
I'm Brad Lake.
I'm Toph Ferguson.
We're bad at board games, so you don't have to be. I'm old. I'm old
You are
and feeble.
so weird. So weird.
Whatever comes to me at the time.
I'm so thankful for that. Things are always an excitable time here.
Wait till I
at Bad at
rap.
Board Games.
I'm going to rap one of
Oh,
them.
please do not.
Oh,
I have to beg
try.
you.
I'm gonna so
Oh
try.
my goodness. People, you do not want to
Beatbox.
hear him rap, please. Oh, I'm going to mute you. Can I turn you off?
It would be hilarious.
So welcome to the chaos that is Bad at Board Games.
What are we talking about today?
Yes, today we are going to be speaking to those of you who are interested in bringing people into the board game hobby. So maybe you have some friends that you want to introduce into the hobby, or maybe you have people who have said, hey, let's play a board game, because they may have seen your collection or have seen you post about it or make videos about it in the past.
Yep.
So these are some things that we, the two of us, kind of feel might be good tips on helping you help others get into the hobby. You are leaning towards me.
Yeah. I need to figure out the...
My space is being encroached on. This is not how you bring new people into the hobby. Personal space. Us board gamers
Not touching
typically are a
Not touching
similar breed of people. We
Not
do
touching
not
him.
like people in our personal space.
Not touching you.
Oh. I can feel my heart rate rising right now.
Does this bother you?
Yes. Yes, it does. So we had a handful of talking points, but let's start with, let's respect other people
Other people's space.
and other people's space. So you have gotten new people into the hobby. I have gotten new people into the hobby.
Yes.
But we have not necessarily gotten new people into the hobby at the same time together.
That is correct.
Yes.
Just with the board game group, but some of them were in the hobby at the time.
Yeah, well, and especially by the time I joined your group, everybody that has joined into our board gaming group has already been in the hobby.
Yeah, or stuck around. We had a few people float in and float out.
Yeah,
So-
but even they were already people. Now, before I joined the group, I think you had some people that were new to board gaming or
Right.
new to, and maybe we should define this as maybe not new to board gaming.
But
But
wanted
more-
more get into the hobby.
Yes, the hobby game. So yeah. But by the time I joined, I think everybody who joined, whether it was for a short period of time or for longer, you know, they were board gamers.
Yep.
And I've got a handful of friends that are board gamers that are in the hobby. But I also have a handful of friends that have not been in the hobby, that have had the joy of kind of seeing that spark kind of come alive and what is board gaming. So so these are things that we have thought about, maybe some tips that you could kind of run through, and we're just going to discuss them, and we may differ on some of these things. We may, obviously we're going to lie on a lot of it because I think it's good advice because we wrote it.
Yeah, it took us about an hour to figure out what we were going to talk about.
You didn't like all of my suggestions.
Just have different opinions.
Uh-huh. Yes. We are different people.
We're different people, and that's why you guys say you like watching us, because we don't agree.
Well, and I think that's also a telling sign of how do you bring new people into the hobby. There are different ways of doing this.
There's a million different ways to do this. These are ways we found that work for us.
Yes, and some of mine are coming from the standpoint of being an educator. So those of you who are educators, you will see which tips I put in.
The lesson plans.
Do y'all write lessons plans that a student will be able to? Like, board gamer will be able to. Those of you who are teachers, you understand the chaos that is. Students will be able to. So let's get started with the first one. I think we both completely agree with this one. Well, we mostly agree with this one. And the first one that kind of topic wise was about complexity.
Right.
So I kind of said, be mindful of complexity. You can kind of see complexity coming in a couple different ways, I think, based on our discussion.
Yeah. And I guess for me, it kind of goes to our third point. So stick around to that and stick around to the end just to find out, what we think in general, point by point. You can't, if you're a board gamer, what you think is not complex is probably complex. I mean, look at BGG. Oh, that's not a 4, that's a 3.
Yeah.
Those people don't even understand what somebody trying to get into the hobby can complain. This is easy. No, it's not. If it needs to be a 0.5 on the mechanic level or weight level for those people to get somebody new into the hobby. That's not.
This is not. This isn't that complex of a game.
No, but you don't start here either.
When you have a tome, that's the instruction manual. Yeah. Yeah,
it needs to be it needs to be simple. Now you look at, everybody talks about Monopoly not being simple. It's not, but it's been around so long and everybody knows how to play it. It almost is culturally ingrained. But and then Uno can be too easy. But you're trying to find that balance. I guess what we're saying is you have to be mindful of the complexity, and what you think is easy really might not be. I've fallen into that trap. Especially with Aura, when I was trying to get Aura more into board games other than Monopoly.
And complexity is an interesting thing because there's a lot of things that make a game complex or not complex. And as Brad's saying, those of us that are in the hobby, we're used to board games. So we find things not as complex. Brad and I play heavyweight games. We don't always say a game that is rated 4 out of 5, like some of these Lacerda games, are all that complex. Are they? Yes, they're incredibly complex, but like I can sit down and play a game of Lisboa and not feel Kanban. Like Kanban's actually, it's a little bit easier later weight. It's still over a 4. And I'm like,
it took us a while to learn.
It took us a while, yeah. But playing it now, to me in my mind, I think, that's not a game I'm going to have to sit down and spend a whole lot of time and mental energy playing compared to some others. And please do not introduce new gamers to Kanban EV. Don't do it.
Or anything like that. Or even Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah.
Or even Ross Ruins of Arnak, I would say, is not an entry-level game for somebody.
No, I would say it's not at all. There's too many mechanics.
If you think those are easy and intro games, it's trying to refresh your brain around, they're not.
I think one of the downfalls that some of us fall into is that we have games we love. We have games that we adore. Some of the ones for you just mentioned, Lost Ruins of Arnak is not a game that you enjoy as much, but Castles of Burgundy you do.
Yeah.
It is a staple in our hobby. This is a fantastic Euro game. It is not an intro game at all, but we want to play those. And I think some of our friends, especially if they're friends of ours, if you're starting a gaming group, it's a little bit different, but if you've got friends you want to bring in, they're seeing these games, they're hearing you talk about games that you really enjoy, and they want to play those, but you have to realize that's a goal. We got to work to that goal. Right. And so really being mindful of what the complexity is. I'm not saying you have to pull out kids games. I'm not meaning it has to be family weight only or that it has to be party games that are at the very low complexity scale. I'm just saying be mindful of the complexity and, probably find things that are a little bit on the easier side, at least to introduce things.
Yeah. And then kind of moving on to one of our next points is straightforward mechanics. So do you want to expand on that a bit, Toph?
Yeah, and this ties very much into complexity as well. And this is kind of where you and I differ a little bit. I am big into what are the mechanics, and are those mechanics transferable from one game to the next? So when I think of introducing somebody into the hobby, I'll take a look at all my games and I'll see, okay, which ones have mechanics that are not overly complex, that are defined. So somebody's going to understand what that mechanic is and what it means. So maybe they don't know what it means to be a deck builder, but you find a game and it's a lightweight game that is a deck builder, but it doesn't have a lot of other mechanics with it. So you can say, okay, let's talk about what a deck builder is, because this is different than anything you've probably ever played before. You teach the deck building mechanic, like you teach it through the gameplay, and they understand that mechanic, and then they understand what deck building means. So then you can eventually move to a higher complexity. But if you're introducing deck building with a lot of other mechanics alongside it, now all of a sudden deck building goes out the window as an idea. It's not an easy game to be able to teach, to play, to understand, to replay, to come back to, or to jump into higher complexity games. So think of things that you enjoy when it comes to mechanics, and think of what are those maybe easier mechanics to grasp. So area movement can be quite easy for some people. I like worker placement because it's simple. You have a limited number of workers, you have a limited number of spaces. So teaching that is you take your person and you move it to an empty open space. That's a straightforward mechanic. Deck building maybe is not a good example of an easy, straightforward beginner mechanic, but it can be if you're playing, for example, Dominion. You have cards, you're buying cards to put into your discard pile, you're playing what's in your hand into your discard pile, you're shuffling it and starting over. And as long as it's not that with 5 other mechanics, you should be okay. Resource management can be a really good introduction to board gaming mechanic, as long as it's not resource management with 100 other mechanics. So trying to make sure that these mechanics are streamlined and maybe limited, which might mean the game's not quite as fun for those of us that like complex games, but it means it's accessible to somebody who is not yet used to all the mechanics at once.
Yeah, and from my side, I don't even think about the mechanics. I think more about how involved are they going to be, because some of the things that people, if you have a game and it takes a long time to get back to that person, this person's new to it, then they kind of check out. They're not involved, they're not engaged. So for me, it's more, how much engagement can that person have in this game system, whatever that mechanic is. I use space base as you're typically involved, or it's something that's very short amount of time to get back to that person. And that's wrapped up in mechanics, but my brain doesn't process it as a mechanic. I process it as, how quickly will the person get to play again, or is the person constantly involved, and is it easy for them to be involved, right? So it's two sides of the same coin. I just don't think of it as a mechanic thing where Toph comes at it from a mechanical side.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I always like to think about is like the example of building up to something like Castles of Burgundy, or building up to a game that maybe they know I like to play. Okay, well, what's a mechanic in that game, and what do I have that kind of simplifies that mechanic? And that way we can play it, get used to it, and then build a different mechanic that's in that same game that we want to work up to. That way, when it comes time to sit down and play this medium complexity game, we have a skill set that we have already become familiar with when it comes to mechanics. So the whole game is not new. We can say, oh, do you remember when we were resource management? Remember when we were playing Settlers of Catan and you had to get, your brick and your wood to be able to build a road? Okay, well, that's resource management. So now with Castles of Burgundy, we are going to go out and we're going to find these different resources. And so automatically it's like, oh, okay, I understand this. Yeah. And so...
Or, you build mechanics on top of each other so you can layer them into new mechanics and they don't have to learn the old mechanic. But that's not where we're at. That's like the next stage.
Yes. Yeah. So starting simple, I guess, is what we're kind of getting to.
And then, so for me, the next one is, along with that whole, are they involved, is how easy is it to teach? If you have to explain a new game to somebody you're trying to pull into it, and granted, remember, you're the expert hobbyist, and you're trying to get a friend or a companion or somebody to want to play these games with you instead of you playing them solo or whatever, right? Is ease of teach. If it's 30 minutes to teach them how to play it, it's too long. We're talking 5, 10, 15 minutes. 15 minutes probably a stretch. Yeah. Right? You need to be able to be like, or at least show an example. And the teach can be, we're going to play, and I'm going to tell you how to play and what to play and why you would want to play it. We'll play open-handed for a round, and if you want to continue, we'll continue, or we can reset since you've seen it, right? And along with that teaches, I'll usually explain it, and typically I'll be the first player only so that some people can kind of see what turn one looks like. So when it gets to them, they might be the last player, but it's more so that they get to see it 1, 2, 3, 4 times before it gets to them, so that they can kind of be like, okay, I kind of am starting to understand what they explained, and now I can play this card, or I can go here. Things like that.
And we do that not just introducing new people into the hobby, but
do that for the
bringing
complex
new
games.
bringing
I still do
new
that
games now. And when we do that sometimes with our gaming group. So you might explain the rules, and then you and I may have played this game, and so we will play back to back, and then somebody else who has maybe played it, and then the new players afterwards they see some.
I just did it with Mosaic. I wasn't trying to be like the first player, but I wanted everybody to at least see, here's me playing my first round. So that by the time it got to their round, they understood, okay, I'm going to play a card or this or that. So.
Yeah. When you think of teaching a game, think of something like what you have done in the past. So Monopoly. What's great about Monopoly? When you sit down to teach Monopoly, if you play by the real rules, it's not the terrible. It's a terrible game. No, it's not the worst game. But I will never play with my brother.
Or Ara.
Yes. Yes, I learned that with Scrabble, and yes. But what's great about a game like Monopoly is you sit down to play it, you open the board game up onto the table, dump out all the pieces, because they're not organized, and then you say, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to roll a dice, you're going to move your player, you're going to land at a spot, maybe buy it, maybe have to pay rent, you maybe collect some money, and maybe you get one of these special cards that's in the middle of the table. You have just explained the entire game. Like, that is an easy to teach game. Even, honestly, we talk about Catan being a good gateway game. I don't pull Settlers out as the first game. There's a lot to it. Yeah, especially somebody who's never played games. So before I get to that, I'm going to probably pull out something different. Carcassonne has been an easy one to kind of start out because that's showing some movement and different tiles and different things going on, and then you can jump into something like Settlers.
Yeah.
So
I would agree.
Easy to teach is good.
What's our next point?
Yeah, the next one is play that game multiple times.
Yeah. So I failed at this.
Yeah.
I have been backtracked and learned of this.
Yeah.
But this was not where I went. I'm like, oh, you played this game, so now let's play the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you. I'm excited for me. Let's play more games.
When you have that friend over to play games, or you go to their house to play games, you introduce a game. That first gameplay is not going to be overly fun for everybody, because everybody's learning how to play, and it might be a fun experience because they are now playing a game, but do they understand it? Can they play it again? Are they able to teach it to somebody else? Are they, have they actually learned how to play the game? Probably not, especially if they're really new to the hobby. So play it again. Okay, so we played it once, and you probably, hopefully, gave tips and tricks along the way to help them out as they've gone throughout that first gameplay. Now, okay, well, let's play it again. You have a good understanding of it. Now let's get competitive, or, whatever you want to do to segue into that. Play it multiple times. Come back to it at the next time that you play again. Play that first.
And that may be over 5 weeks. Like, if you meet this person once a week, you're talking like for the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Maybe that's the only game you play.
That game.
Yeah.
So if they get it, then it's like, what's 2.0 after that? Hey, I think I want to play something else now. Okay, great. I've got this.
Yeah.
So
that's reinforcing game mechanics. It's reinforcing the game rules, and maybe it's not just reinforcing that game. Maybe it's a game that they don't fully enjoy all that much because they really want to get to that really nice game that's over on your shelf, but you are helping them get to the point where they're going to be able to get to that new game. So that's a good one, which goes into, I think, the next, and this is where my teacher is going to come out, but straight up ask people what they enjoyed about it. So now you've played the game 2 or 3 times. What'd you like? What'd you enjoy? What did you not enjoy about it? Because that can tell you a lot. That can tell you maybe they don't like the mechanic. Maybe they don't understand the mechanic. Maybe you didn't do a good job teaching it.
No.
We've all been there. We've all done that. So, that's going to help you navigate what to pull off the shelf next. Because if they really enjoyed a certain mechanic, maybe play another game with that mechanic again. That way you're introducing it in a different way. That way you're reinforcing how that mechanic is going to work, and then you can build upon that going forward. But you can't really ask them what they liked and did not like if they've only played it once, because likely they don't know what they just did.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been there. Remember, we've all been that new person into the hobby. So
let's see, what do we got next? We have points down here that we can look at. Introduce new games. Introduce games slowly. New games slowly. So he alluded to it. There are actual YouTubers that, and I kind of like it. It might be something we do, is like how to get somebody from Catan to Lacerda in 4 games, right? Like, but if you think about it, like, what game do you want them to be able to play? At least to get them, if you're like in Castles of Burgundy, great intro to Euro games. So Euro games are not intro games typically. So how do you get them there, right? And create a path, like, and then be willing to kind of like deviate from that path if it's not quite working, or slow down. So because there's no way faster that somebody's going to be like, I hate board games, than if you try to push it too far, too fast.
Yeah.
So.
And also to hone in on something that they don't like, which goes back to, asking them, if you find out, like me, I don't really like deduction. I'm not huge on hidden movement. I know that now. I may not have understood that when I was getting started because I didn't fully understand what that meant in gameplay. When I started 20 some years ago, I didn't know what a Euro game was. Like, I didn't know that terminology. I didn't understand that. I just played the game because I liked it. So introducing slowly through it, you're not forcing them to sit down and learn something quickly that they're going to forget that they do not like, which means they're never going to want to play it again. And the worst thing you want to do is turn somebody off from the hobby, especially if they show interest in wanting to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, go slowly with that. There's no rush. You can get to the Lacerdas with them, maybe not in 4 weeks or 4 games, but you can get to wherever they want to go. Maybe they'll play. My brother has really good friends of theirs that they play board games on a regular basis, but they play one board game. They play Catan. And that's fine. They have started introducing the expansions. They have started playing new expansions to it, but they haven't just jumped straight into something else immediately. They played for like years, and then they added in Seafarers, and then they added in Traders and Barbarians. And so they're like slowly adding in parts to it, but they're doing it in a way that works for them and who they are. They don't want to play different games. They enjoy that one. They just want to play that one. That was their goal. And so they worked slowly to a little bit more complexity into it.
There you go. So the next thing I would say is, as you're trying to draw somebody into the hobby, is find a theme. Because if you just can't get them to sit down and do something, find a theme. Like for Aura, nature. Like I wouldn't, there's a lot of games that I would not have bought because it was nature themed. And I don't care about that theme. That's not a theme that I want to play. Like I don't want to sit down and play a game. It just wasn't in the cards for me. For me, theme was important, but it was my themes that were important. So finding a theme. Do you like racing? Heat's not super difficult. I don't know if it's entry level, but it might be something that you could be like, you're going to play this card and then you're going to move a car, right? That's possible. Might still be a little bit more, and I would say on an entry level, but like, this is a retail game, right? And I like this one the best because I'm an engineer and I like inventions, but this is just, here's some inventions, and you try to put it in order of the timeline. And if you don't get it right, you draw another card. And it's kind of like Uno. Whoever gets rid of all their cards first wins. And you get to see, when was the clock made? When was, the first book made, or the printing press? It's all these things throughout history. And it's just kind of neat. It gets harder the more cards you put out. And there's one for history and some other stuff like that. But that's not necessarily a theme thing, but it was like an easy thing. When we talk about the mechanics, it was easy to teach. Oh, I've got 5 cards in here and I have to be able to put it between 2 cards. Okay. Was it in 1900 or 1700? I think it was before 1700. You put it down and you were right or wrong, and you kind of learn something along the way. Or cats.
I've never heard of this game, by the way.
Oh, really? Yeah, like I said, it's more a Barnes & Noble, bookstore-ish kind of thing.
Yeah.
People who love cats. I don't know a cat lover that doesn't like this game yet, you know? So, and it's pets or things like that. But those can go along with, oh, it's pretty. I like cats. I'm curious. It's not hard. You know, and now that's at Target, but like those used to not be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we have a big advantage, and some of it is a disadvantage with the amount of hobby games that's so accessible, because some of those hobby games, like you can get Wingspan, medium complexity, you can get Everdell, a little bit higher complexity at some of these, you know, big box retailers. That can make it difficult because somebody might see it and think, oh, that's a beautiful game and it's $60. It must be a great game. But if they've only played mass market, party style, low complexity, or fill in the gap with whatever, you know, single idea of a board game, they're not ready for Everdell.
Right.
But theme to me is not as important. This is where Brad and I differ a little bit. Like, I love theme. I do love theme. Now I love theme. I can jump into a game and it doesn't matter what it is. If it's got the theme, I'm probably going to like it, but it's more important to me the mechanics. And for me, introducing new people into board gaming, this is where we differ. I throw theme out the window. Who cares about the theme? Because I want it to be something that they enjoy and understand. So I go to the mechanic. Right. So that is the difference between you and I in that.
And you have to understand your audience, right? I'm going to theme as I'm trying to hook them, you know, with interest. And then by hooking them with the interest, then they will seem to be more apt to listen and learn about something that's new.
Yeah.
You know, where Toph's trying to find a simple and easy thing to listen to and then not worry about the theme. So it's just two different ways. And to the same end.
Vary also based on who you're trying to introduce the games to. If there's somebody who has expressed interest in playing board games,
right,
mechanic is a good way to go. If they are not somebody who has expressed interest into board gaming, then maybe you do want to hook them more with theme.
And I think that's the next big point. Which kind of gamer are you looking at? Somebody that's like, I've been really interested in board games, but I can't find anybody to teach me. That's somebody who wants and is just waiting to get sucked into the hobby, versus somebody's like, I don't like board games, I'm not really interested. You know, then it's trying to find, well, what do you like to do? Oh, I like sports, or I like this, or I like that. I'm like, well, we can find. Well, how about look at this? This is kind of neat, you know. So, yeah, there's two different types of people in the wanting or trying to get them into our hobby.
Yeah, knowing the audience is good. Knowing the game, though, do make sure that you know what the game is that you are going to be introducing to them. So if you're going out to find something new,
you have to learn how to play it very well.
Yeah, and you have to make sure that it's going to be something, because there are games that might have a very good theme that you absolutely want nothing to do with.
Yeah.
Or you might end up finding that the theme is fantastic, but the game is a very high level complexity. Yeah. So that could be too.
And sometimes I'm going off our track here a minute, but like he made me think of like sometimes it can be something you learn together, right? I wouldn't necessarily say that all the time, but there are cases, and you have to know who the case is. Like, oh, let's, you know, it's a commitment. Let's sit down and kind of try to understand the rules together. And you're learning this together and getting frustrated with it together, but you're like, now you're committed. I'm not going to let this game beat me. That can be dangerous. That can be a style, but it can also be like when you try to go build something with somebody else, be like, everybody wants to tell each other how to do things. So be careful.
That can be dangerous. Maybe don't go that route.
But there's a lot of different ways to do things.
There are. And it depends on the game. It really does depend on the game. And, you know, there are ways that you can find out what a game's going to be like before you play it. So maybe there are ways that you can go about trying to find that game and then sit down and learn how to play it together. If it's a low complexity game with minimal mechanics, it's probably going to be something that you can learn relatively quickly. But I mean, I put this down as an idea, just, you know, use your resources that you have. If you're wondering what games you should introduce other people to, go out there. You know, we ask all the time for recommendations. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to play every single game that you guys recommend to us, because maybe it's way off the chart of what our gaming group might be interested in playing. the way that we notice that is we go into, or at least I do, I'll go into BGG, boardgamegeek.com, and I'll take a look at, okay, let me look at that game. Let me pull it up. Let me see what the mechanics are. Let me see what the game length of play is. Let me see the complexity level, what people are rating it, what their comments are about the game. And then I get a pretty good understanding of, okay, is this a game that we're going to like or not going to like? Now, most of you who follow us, who subscribe to our channel, likely enjoy similar games what we do, because most of what you have recommended to us have been a big hit. So, there is that. But at the same time, if I'm going out looking for something and I go to a random YouTube channel, I'm not going to necessarily just buy the game. I'm going to do a little bit of research first. Maybe I'm going to my friendly local gaming store and I'm going to talk to them and ask them, hey, what do you guys do when you host an open board game night and you want to bring people into the hobby? Or better yet, at a lot of the local gaming stores, they might have a section of used games that they allow anybody to sit down and play. Look at them, because likely they're going to be lower complexity games, because again, they're trying to bring people into the hobby, and most of the people that are going to the local gaming stores are probably going to play Magic. So if I'm going with friends and I don't want to play Magic, I'm going to sit down and play board games with whoever might be there. It's probably going to be a lower complexity game. So you might be able to find friendly to new player games just by looking at what used games they have available there. YouTube is a great recommendation. Our channel, other channels, those are always going to be great. Take it with a grain of salt. Do a little bit of research. If you're old like we are, blogs and podcasts are also good. I always listen to podcasts, and they oftentimes will bring in some ideas for bringing new people into the hobby. Those are good game recommendations.
But as you're trying to, we say this for you as well, right? You have to figure out which content creator you're watching. You may like watching them, and but you have to and you're going to make some purchases based on liking watching them, and then you're going to find out you don't like the games. So you're going to find, and that's just part of learning. I like this person. He's saying this game's great. So you may find people that you like just to watch, and then you're going to find the ones that I don't necessarily like watching them, but I always seem to align with the game they like, so I'm curious to see what they say about these games, along with the person I like to watch that's talking about these games, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, you probably won't find as many reviews for the lower complexity introduction games on YouTube channels if you're watching hobbyist content creators.
But we're in the hobby, so we're not interested in all the intro ones. Or you can look up top 10 intro games. We've even got one, I'm sure.
Or another really great thing to look for, and we say this all the time, filler games. Because a lot of times filler games tend to be shorter.
Yeah.
They tend to be a little bit less complex, and they're good for filling in between the heavier weight games, which a lot of us are really interested in, and sometimes those are the ways to get going with people. So.
Yeah, and I guess we didn't really talk about time, and then you mentioned it. I think less about time, but I think if you click off, is it easy to teach? Are they engaged, or and mindful of the complexity? You're automatically lowering the time. When somebody asks you how long it takes to go, that's when you just kind of be like, it's an easy game, it goes pretty fast. But you don't want to pull out something and then it be like 12 hours. If you tell somebody it's a 30-minute game, that may be too long for them, but they don't realize to play Uno for 30 minutes, right? So just be like, it's quick, it's easy, let's try it. It's not a very long game. And that because you're just talking about 30 minutes, I guarantee you they'll sit down and play Uno for 30 minutes and they won't even realize it.
Yeah.
Nobody
that game of
understands
Monopoly
time.
that takes 5 hours to play through, and it's total dread to get through those 5 hours.
Right.
We've got many games that are less than an hour that you would think is way too long, but
and I was telling him, I'm like, there was a long time, if it was over an hour, I wasn't buying it. If it said over an hour on the box, I would not buy it.
Yeah, time is not something that I think about when I want to play a game, but I do think about time with new players. We didn't put that as a thing, but that is a good tip. My goal when I introduce somebody new to a board game is to play that game at least twice that day, at that time. Play it and then be like, did you like it? You want to play again? Let's play again. And then immediately reshuffle or reset the game and start over again. That reinforces the learning, but it allows them to have a night of gaming and you only played one game twice. Which is nice. So, which goes into what I just said, evaluate again. So the teacher in me is coming back out, evaluate, ask them, did you like that one? Did you not like that? What did you think about that one compared to the one we played before? That way you're getting an idea of where to go with introducing them to more. slowly. Enjoy the process, but enjoy them more.
Yeah. So at the end, we've got enjoy the process. And I guess one other thing I want to put in here is you have to be the kind of person that wants them to enjoy the game. So you can't be in competitive mode. I'm going to win when I play this game. If you curb stomp somebody or just blow through them, they won't enjoy the game. I don't care what it is. So you have to figure out a way like, no, I would recommend this or that. You know, if they don't want your help, that's different. But you still need to be like, okay, take backsies are allowed for new people. You know, don't get into this hyper thing and realize you may not have communicated every rule and be like, oh, I'm sorry. But when you're trying to pull somebody in and having new people, you have to care more about their experience with it than getting everything right or them doing everything right or not, you know, like, yep, you can do it. Now, after a couple times, I take that away. And then that's when ours used to, I'm like, yeah, but you've played, you know the rules now. You don't get takes backsies anymore.
I think that's a good time to also say, take your pride away when you're introducing new games or introducing new people to the hobby.
Yeah. Help them be successful at it.
Yes.
Because if they're successful at it, they're going to want to do it again.
Yeah. And if you jump the gun and are overly competitive, you're more concerned with you winning. I'm not that way, please. You're... There's a reason I play solo games and cooperative games and not conflict games. I win a lot because you're bad at board games, but actually we're pretty evenly mixed.
No, you're winning.
I do, but you know. But set your pride aside, as I'm trying to do here, and realize that, you know, if it is, especially if they have said, I want to learn how to play board games, let them enjoy the process. Let them enjoy learning and maybe winning. Who cares if you didn't play fully? If they enjoy it, they're going to want to play again. And if it's somebody that you're trying to con into the hobby, a spouse, a loved one, a friend, whoever it might be, you move to a new town and you don't have anybody play board games with you, so you're just trying to build a base. Again, same thing. Set your pride aside. Stop being a hobbyist gamer who has to win and
take a few steps back and then bring them back to where you're at.
Yeah, and just because you'll enjoy that process too. When you see that spark go off in somebody's eyes that like, oh, I get this, I understand it. Then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's why we are in this hobby. We love getting it. We love the nature and the complexity and the difference and the diversity of the board games and all that we have with the hobby.
And getting that engine gets going and it's like, oh crap, I don't know how I'm doing so good, but it finally worked.
I'm waiting for the day that he does that in Terraforming Mars and he starts to understand the beauty of the engine building of Terraforming Mars. But
the second worst game.
We'll have comments after we stop the video. But enjoy the process. That goes for you.
You wanted it to be my worst game? Is that what you mean?
No.
Oh.
So back to the content at hand. Enjoy the process. I want that to be for you as well as for the new players. I want everybody to enjoy it because that's why we're in this hobby. Yeah. So that we can all enjoy the hobby. None of us want to sit down and play a board game that we hate. I don't force them to play Terraforming Mars.
No. And I'm not going to play Gaia Project
again. Yeah.
Lobotomy. Yeah.
So
we try things.
We do. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But anyways.
Thank you very much for these suggestions. We have a couple others. We're trying to figure out how to frame them in a way that we both kind of agree or don't. It's just instead of just sitting here bickering. You may have seen our expansion one. Click up here if you want to see the expansion. I think we had a lot of disagreements about that, but it's okay. We see things differently. We think differently, right? And we all will. That's why there's a million ways to get somebody into the hobby. We're just giving you 2 ideas. So
yeah.
Comment down below. Let us know, how do you get people in? What are your, like, I found this to be successful, or this was something, or even the games that you have gotten people involved with. We'd really like to know. We like commenting with you. Commenting? That's
I am curious. I'm going to ask you to comment on this video right now.
Okay.
What is your #1 game to bring new people into the hobby?
Well, I still say Space Base.
Okay, so for you, it's Space Base. For me, it's Carcassonne. That's been my lately gateway for the last couple of years.
Yeah. I don't know. Space Base, to me, and it has the mechanic where everybody watches the dice, and that's why. You know, you may or may not get the chaining right, or but people kind of like rolling dice, and it's never a bad thing for you. And then when somebody else rolls the dice, it might be a good thing for you. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So
it's a fun one. Yeah, it's a fun one. Carcassonne I like because it's very minimal. I don't play with expansions, just the basic game, kind of chill experience. So,
but I mean, all the main ones, like, you know, you look at Ticket to Ride, Carcassonne, Catan, even like that, you can get like this. Like, I didn't know board games were like this kind of thing. So,
oh, I forgot. I have another good one that I use to introduce people to the hobby.
Maybe this is the most hated game.
Do not use this to introduce people to the hobby.
Don't introduce this to anybody you know.
No, do, because it's a fantastic game.
It's a horrible game.
Yes, fantastic.
Horrible, nasty little game.
Anyways, let us know what you thought. If you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, friends, we would love to have you hanging around for the long haul. So please subscribe, click the bell if you want some notifications of more disagreements that Brad and I have in the board gaming hobby.
There you go. And just remember, no matter how you play, whether it's solo, with family, or friends,
enjoy whatever games you are bringing to the table.
Have a great night.